Carl, and those programs you did with Paul and Gloria yesterday were just really good. That one you had about Howard Stern, and then about the, I think you got into the thing about the attorney generals, and it was really good, and she's really getting good, and I'm looking forward to that being aired.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
With Carl Pearson, you can just step in almost anywhere on a multi-varied tableau of subjects. And welcome very much to Conversations. A pleasure to welcome to the program a friend, a dear friend of Conversations and the world. That's Carl Pearson, attorney in the interests of the people in a very real sense. And Carl, so good as always to see you, and welcome.
I'm very pleased to be here, and I have a variety of things that I'd like to say.
You always do. You take a day or so and you put in a major aspect to the understanding of the legal system that has huge implications, and you do it all in your own initiative. And you're very much along that line. I congratulate you very much.
Well,
why don't you go in about a 5-minute way of the outside your background a little bit as we wade in.
Well, I'd like to say initially that I am a practicing lawyer, and I've been a lawyer for 40 plus years. But my road to becoming a lawyer was a little bit difficult because in high school I was so bored to death that I kept looking for excuses not to go into the classroom.
Right.
So I was the one who would take the pass and go to the bathroom or go outside, and I would always want to operate the 8mm camera or do anything to take me out of the class.
Or maybe sneak away and go to a library and read something you want to read.
Or how about not going to school?
Yeah, right. No, I know it well. Yeah,
right. So finally at
you're autodidactically inclined.
I don't know what I was doing, but I just knew that sitting in class is so boring. I mean,
think so,
Jesus.
yeah.
So what I did was at 16, even before 16, at 15, I left school for the last time, high school. So I walked out of school. I became 16 in the summer, so I never went back to high school, and I do not have my high school diploma.
You're a dropout.
Yeah, I'm a high school dropout.
Hopeless, yeah.
And people ask me, well, why don't you now get your GED? And I said, what, are you crazy? I mean, I'm much better not having a high school diploma. Then, well, did you go to college? And people wonder, if you don't have a high school diploma or, let's say, a GED, can you go to college? Well, I didn't know. I was in the Army. I had dropped out of high school. I went into the Army with my best friend. We joined the Army. We're assigned to the Signal Corps. I became a high-speed radio operator.
You do that well.
Oh, you don't forget it.
Yeah,
I mean, I can read the stuff, but probably only 8 or 10 words a minute instead of the 25 that I had been trained to do. So I went into the Army, and I signed up for 3 years. Now that's too much for a kid at 17. At 17 years old, I go into the Army for 3 years. So the Army sent me to the Rock, Okinawa, and I spent 2 years on the Rock.
Doing?
2 years. Well, you don't do anything there. I mean, that's the problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I really wanted to get out of the Army. In fact, when I was into the Army about a year or less, I went to the doctor and I said, I have asthma and I think I should get out of the Army. I always thought that I could get out by saying I had asthma. Now, I don't know if I had asthma or not, but I wanted to get out, and I said I had asthma, and the doctor said, well, with or without asthma, we're not letting you out. So I said, oh my God, I've got 3 years now. So I understood from somebody in the Army that if I got acceptance to a college, they would let me out up to 3 months early.
They did. I took advantage of that.
So I went around. My uncle was in charge of a very well-known academy, training people to go to college. My father, Harvard Law School graduate, a lawyer in New York City.
He must have been upset when you dropped out of high school.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? It's very hard to do anything. I mean, you just can't live my life. I have to live my life and make my mistakes.
You've lived a very well-led life.
Well, I pleaded with my father and my uncle to find just any college in the United States willing to take me. So they spent a couple of months looking around, and they came up with 2 and only 2. One was Columbia.
Oh, well, that's a pretty
It
important,
wasn't,
isn't it?
because they would only take me as a non-matriculated
Oh,
student.
I see,
They would take my money and let me sit in class,
I
but
see,
no
yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
So that was Columbia. That's
there,
right. So
yeah.
Columbia said, we'll take your money, but no degree. We won't matriculate you because, look, you don't have a high school diploma.
Right, you're a dropout.
You're a dropout.
Yeah.
You have 4 years out of school.
You're just
and
a
you
profit
and you
center
failed
for us.
French in
Yeah,
school.
right.
You failed earth science. I mean, good God, how can we accept you for
You're right.
matriculation? So my father found a school in Brooklyn and LIU, Long Island University, at Flatbush Avenue Extension and DeKalb Avenue. And thankfully, that was the only school that took me. A week after they accepted me and I went into that school, the director of admissions hired me as his personal assistant. So I became very active behind the scenes in the school, and I got to know the school because I'm now part of the admissions process. And I ran for student council president a year and a half after I got into the school, and I became the president of the student body.
So there have been some changes.
And I had full scholarships. I got scholarships there.
You got engaged on your own terms.
I walked into the school, went into the elevator, and asked the elevator operator. It was done with a human being at that time. I said, "Who's the brightest guy in the school?" And he said, "Holly." I said, "Where is Holly? What is this thing, Holly?" I asked a few other people, and everyone told me that Holly Brewster is the smartest guy in the school.
It's good to go there.
So I went there, and he was on the 11th floor. They said he's always on the 11th floor. He's in the library. He's working.
That's
always,
the library?
yes.
Yeah.
He's working in the library for the school, earning extra income, and he studies all the time. So don't bother him, but that's who it is.
Yeah, right.
So he became my best friend.
Him.
Yeah, well.
You became his best friend.
So he graduated number 1.
Yeah.
I graduated number 3, and our mutual friend, a woman, graduated as number 2 in the school. So
1,
each
2,
of us
3 punch.
we had not cum laude, but the next step up.
Magna
cum laude. Yeah. My friend Holly just missed
summa
cum laude by just a little bit because he got a C in philosophy when that professor gave me an A. So
I had a friend of mine, Alan Epstein, my best friend. He passed on some time ago. He was, I think, the youngest graduate ever from Yale. At 15, I think, with a bachelor's degree, summa cum laude.
Yes.
That's really something, from anyway.
That's good.
Yeah.
So
he was in poetics.
So I got through the school. I raced through the school in 3 years, and I was accepted to every law school I applied to.
You decided to go into law. Yeah. Your dad, did you say your dad was in law?
Well, he was in law, Harvard Law School graduate, and he was working as the associate for the top partner in real estate and the top partner in the law firm that he worked for.
Now, was yours a legacy appointment, or was it just
your
good record after dropping out?
Well, I had a good record. I had a very high record at LIU, and I did not have that good an LSAT.
What is that?
A law school admission test. I had a relatively bad one when I took it the first time, a year into college. And then I took it about a year later. But I studied every week. I really studied.
You're in what they would call interdirected, and there's a term autodidact where you teach yourself when you're going. It's like that's something that's really important.
Well,
it seems to me.
I learn what needs to be known.
In terms of human psychology.
I learn what I need to know to do what I want to do, and to try to think
what you want to do,
I
not what
do.
somebody else thinks you ought to know, which is a different kind of outer directed.
Right. So when you sit in class and a teacher really doesn't care to a great extent, they give you an assignment, they give you some books, and the teacher just wants to get paid. Really doesn't care that much because the system.
That's an awful lot of job roles in this country are training people not only to teach that way or to do that, but also to fit into a system that assumes that's human nature. That it's a thing. So you'll accept an authority figure and you'll do what the authority figure tells you. So it's sort of like training people to fit into bureaucracy.
So I had a school, and I developed some programs. One of the programs I developed was to train people to become the assistant to the owner of a small business.
Assistant to the owner of a small business?
Now, if you've ever had a small business, you would know that the owner of a small business who has no employees has to do each of the 1,000 different jobs that come up. We've got to do every one of those 1,000 different jobs. It is a horrible existence to be the owner of a small business.
He could use some help.
We could use some help.
She, yeah.
So the problem that you have if you put on one employee is that the first thing you have is payroll, which I didn't have if I'm working alone in my own business. There's no payroll.
Right.
You don't even make any money. I mean, forget payroll.
Okay.
So if you take on one employee, suddenly the amount of work that you have almost doubles because you have so much tax and other things that have to be done in order to account for that one.
Yeah.
You've got to first of all set up you have to get an insurance policy for workman's compensation. You have to go out and find one and pay for it.
That's just one employee.
Yeah, just for one employee, even for 1 hour a week. Then you have to get another insurance policy for unemployment insurance. Then you have to set up a banking relationship with a company called Paychecks, which is the big firm in the nation that does this. And then you have to have records that you keep, and you have to have telephone calls all the time coming in and out. You have to have the potential of filling out forms and having audits. All of this for just a couple of hours of a part-time person.
And this is all
that's the nanny gate problem.
Right.
Remember the nanny gate?
Yeah, nanny gate. Yeah,
that's
the
why.
government's going to nanny gate you to
that's
death.
why nanny gate occurred, because you have to put in 20 hours a week in order to have an employee work for you for 2 hours. But so you would have to find somebody who could put in the 20 hours plus the 2 if you want 2 hours. Yeah.
You need 2.
So I have a solution for that.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Here's the solution.
Now we're getting down. And you went to law school and you got your degree and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'm a practicing member of the bar for more than 40 years now.
Okay. You're getting the hang of it.
So here,
are you getting the hang of it in spades?
Well,
because you put out amicus brief over a couple of days that have huge implications and so on, and you do it on your own initiative.
Well,
you seem to be very inner-directed.
I am free to do what I want to do.
That's good, right?
And that allows me to do things.
Do you think it's good to have a society where people are free to do what they want to do rather than what they must do according to the dictates of somebody that has an authority figure over them? Or what?
You've come around to how I tell people the reason that I'm able to do as much as I do. You've stumbled on a few of the phrases here. And that is that I tell people never do what you have to do.
Okay.
Because you then have time to do what you want to do.
Okay, now that's a big, big thing you just said.
Right.
And it doesn't apply in the thinking of most practical-minded people if they're talking to the youth coming up. Do what you have to do
later.
And learn how to do what you're told in order to get along.
They say that, but basically if you do what you have to do, you will find that you're always doing what you have to do and you have no time for doing what you want to do.
And that's probably the overwhelming majority of the people in our society are in that kind of an attitude, in that kind of a relationship to the broader society.
Right, so we have an excuse. Well, I can't do that because I have to do this, and this.
And that's the most important thing that comes up. Like if you have a thing, let's say a mother or something like that, her kid, let's just say, you could say physically she has a problem, they have to take care of the health or something, or let's say just even emotionally, something really important in terms of that and everything. But everything takes a second place to the fact that I've got to be on the job by 8:15 to punch the clock.
Right.
And that's the one thing that motivates the life choices of the people, most people within the society here and around the world, how to assert, how to fit in to a structure by which you're going to get something so that you get a chance to have some bread to eat.
Okay, now
that's like wage slavery, the Marxists would call it. But it's a self-imposed thing by a lot of people.
Here's how this works out.
And is reified by the system writ large for reasons we might get into maybe.
Here's how it works out. That if you want to do something, let's say you want to set up a new business in order to train people to become liberated or something like that.
Or if you want to do a not-for-profit thing or
anything.
something.
If you want to do something.
Any organizational thing. We got people we're in touch with that are in that situation now.
Here's what happens. That when you start an idea, there's a lot of fun because you can organize the idea. You can take a piece of paper.
You put it on an envelope, right?
You put it on an envelope, and you figure out what you're going to do. It's exciting. What
eureka moments come. Yeah.
Now, and then you take some steps, and you finally initiate enough action so that suddenly You have things that you are required to do.
By the system.
Yeah, by the system.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. Make sure that you understand when and where you have to do something. But don't go running out and doing it right now, because that will foreclose doing other things that you want to do.
That's interesting.
You have to keep your calendar tight and make sure that you can do the things that must be done only when they must be done. Don't go out and rush a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks in advance, because you'll use up all those 3 weeks doing what you need to, what you must do,
rather than what you really want to do.
What you want to do.
That's a general. That could be almost like a dictum.
You have to do it that way
Yeah.
if you want to be. If you want to do things and get anything done.
Okay.
You want to have time. I have time to do a million things, but you have to organize it so that the things that become obligatory you put off until they really have to be done. Don't
you see
do
a
it
painter,
beforehand.
like my friend, he was a painter also and everything like that, and boy, when he's at the canvas, you could not pull him away. It didn't have pull yourself away to come over and do this little fill out this form.
That's what he wants to do. He wants to paint.
And that and there's creativity there, and there's a thing, there's a way of seeing human nature that it's like they're being motivated by what they want to. That's a huge issue.
I'm going to give you on this show and our viewers here, I'm going to give an idea that's worth at least several $1 million to each town and village in the United States.
Okay,
it's worth
now
a lot of money.
everybody in the audience out there in the audience, now get your pad and paper now and write this down and take careful note. Maybe you'll want to turn your VCR on or your TiVo and copy this, because you're going to get words of wisdom that have practical application to improving your life.
First of all, I'll tell you where you can find the idea, so that if you don't get the whole thing.
This specific idea.
Yes.
You got a lot of ideas.
Yeah, I've got 100 websites.
Yeah,
or more.
right. Literally 100 websites. He puts out a website like I wrote a letter home to mom.
So this website is called lawmall.com.
That's right.
lawmall.com /election issues with an S on it. That's where you can find this idea.
We'll put the link up, I hope, at the end. I'm not sure, but say it one more time.
lawmall.com
LAWMALL.com /
election issues run
election
together.
issues. Okay, good.
Lowercase run together. Okay. There, the idea is explained, and the idea is not quite as good as I'm going to explain it now. But as I went to a town upstate New York a couple of weeks ago, I made a presentation to the group that ran the town. For 2 hours, I met with them, and this is one of 4 ideas that I gave to them, and they thought it was a great idea. Let the town set up a nonprofit organization that will become, in effect, an office temp employer.
Okay, office. Okay.
So you know where
the town. Let the town
set up a nonprofit organization, so that the town itself isn't obligated.
Okay, is that like the city council or an organization that's in place, and so
it
we'll
just,
do that?
Well, let's say
I mean, a citizen can't
like
do
a
that.
Well, a town or a citizen can do it, but a nonprofit corporation, for example, that would take care of the cleaning the parks. I'm not saying do that, but this an example. This corporation will be for the purpose of becoming the employer of record for every employee of every one of the 800 businesses in that area around the town.
That's larger template.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have 800 people. Now, if any one business has an employee, what does that one business have to have? A workman's comp insurance, an unemployment insurance,
all this
has to have all the paperwork, has to have the files, has to have people doing it. So if you
each one of those,
each one of those
have to do that.
So now you have one organization with one filing cabinet, with one one office, one telephone, being the employer of record for 800 different businesses in the town.
Right, and
so they don't have to hire the people to do that. You can actually do it on a communal basis where you share the costs. The charges will be broken down appropriately so that no one pays more or less than they should. And then you could have the elimination of that 20 hours of work that each business has to do to maintain one employee.
And you would set up like a template that would be applicable to the 800.
Right.
And so you got a template you can work from.
You don't even need a template.
No, but I meant mentally or just structurally.
The people would, anyone like a gas station with 4 employees would call up this office in town and say, I have 4 employees, they get 800 this week, 600, 400, 300.
Right.
And the checks will come in to that person. So all the records will be maintained in that one building, in that one office in the town, run by the nonprofit organization. And every one of the 800 employers now says, look, I think I will put on some seasonal help. They don't have to add any. They don't have to take out insurance policies to put on seasonal. They can hire 5 or 10 people for 3 days.
So that means that one of the 800 would be different than another one.
Yeah, each one would have his own activities, but it would run through an office temp, because you know what an office temp is. People are working office temp all the time.
Yeah.
So we know the structure of an office temp. But here, instead of the office temp looking for clients, trying to market, every one of the businesses is a natural customer, and they don't have any marketing costs. They only have the servicing. And the servicing will be for 800 businesses at the same time. One audit instead of 800 audits. No one's ever done it.
Like, let me say an analogy. Lily Tomlin used to do the thing with Saturday Night Live, being a telephone operator. Remember, she would sit with an emery board, and she would sit. She was funny as all get out. She was going to connect Mr. B with Mr. C, and doing the telephone. Is it an automating kind of step to where you are now switching systems that do that kind of thing? And those kind of things don't have to be duplicated with each of your 800. It could be sort of, in a sense, automating it.
Let me ask,
or making it more automatic.
Let me put it another way.
Autonomic, maybe.
Let me put it another way. Supposing that you bought a newspaper stand, and you were running it yourself. And then suddenly you thought you would like some help in the evening, to have somebody else. You don't have to work till late at night. You can have somebody else do the work.
You go home with the family, have some time with the kids, yeah.
But you don't want to put on an employee, because then you have to have
go to all the
you have to go those 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
So people like that business, many small businesses do not hire anyone because of the payroll problem.
Yeah, and all the forms.
Of all the forms.
And the government.
So let the town be the employer for that purpose, so that we can eliminate that obstacle to hiring people in the town. We can generate 20% more jobs in that town by eliminating the barriers that prevent people from hiring. So we can have a 20% increase.
And that really does, people in the real world, that does prevent them.
Right, so that's a natural. It's just an obvious idea that will benefit every single town by perhaps 20% increase in employment for the town.
You have models that show that 20%?
There is. This is new. This is new. No one's ever done it before. I don't deal with old stuff. I'm only
you
dealing
don't.
with
You're
this
always
stuff.
out on the cutting edge. Yeah.
So that I propose.
So were they?
They like the idea. Now I might have to go in and set it up. But it's no big deal. You only need a woman or a man to run this thing, and you may need 2 or 3 other people. If you have 800, you have to make a lot of phone calls and get the data that you're going to supply to paychecks.
Yeah. But you could have, again, a template that you could use to gather that in a systematic way.
You can
and you
do
could
it by
use
email.
A computer.
You can do it by databases and email, and you can make it easy. And that would be the purpose. And we ought to do that and move that across America to eliminate the barrier of the nanny gate problem. That prevents the person in home from hiring domestic help because of the need to pay payroll taxes and all that. So you can
get involved in all the paperwork.
So you could have.
I have a hell of a time.
You could have
forms.
100 million people using this thing, and I don't know why it isn't being done. It's a natural, obvious
Why
idea.
has not somebody come in, let's say, as a market incentive entrepreneurially and set that up?
They could.
And you're suggesting they could.
They should.
Why haven't they? You thought of the idea, and you come up, you got the idea.
I have other things to do.
I know, you're busy. You got about 600 irons in the fire, and that's a really interesting one.
So in addition to that, at the same time, I gave 3 other ideas.
Okay. To this group?
To the town.
To the town. And you were talking to town representatives, government representatives,
to the supervisor, the one in charge of the town.
Okay.
He manages the town.
Okay, yeah.
So I presented 3 other ideas. The first idea that I gave, I said, look, I'm going to give you this idea, but it's not for you, and I'm going to take it away as soon as I give it to you because your town is too small. I said, I need a larger area in which to give away free tuition for a college. I'm willing to set up a college in your town where the tuition is free.
Okay.
No cost tuition for any of the people that attend. The books
a college
are free.
that would be within
Books and tuition are free.
Okay, okay. Are there details? College that would be like what they call accredited and so forth?
No, that's the problem.
Okay.
It has to be an equivalency college.
Okay.
An equivalency. So by having an equivalency college, I take the NYU fee of $70. I'm guessing at that. $70 per hour. Every time you walk in a classroom and take a seat, you're obligated to pay $70 an hour, roughly. Maybe it's 60, maybe it's 80.
You mean for the faculty?
No, it was just the students sitting in that one seat.
He's obligated to pay the money.
$70. Tuition.
Yeah, tuition. Okay, right.
But
right.
I know what the school business is.
That's NYU, it's private.
Well, as any school, it's a high-cost school.
Okay.
So and it's in a high-cost area. New York is a high-cost area.
Now, what they're going to be going to that school for is to get a certificate by which they're going to make a lot of money.
Well, they're going to have a degree. They're going to get an equivalency degree or a certificate that will.
No, you're talking about yours.
Yes, that will certify that they have as good an education as you can get elsewhere. And the people who will be teaching are local. They're not going to be paid at the rates that a professor at Columbia might be paid, who have tenure and work. Do you know, for example, at Harvard Law School, and I'm just using that as an example, and I'm not sure, but many law professors work about 3 hours a week.
Well,
they teach 3 hours a week.
In class. Yeah, I used to be a professor.
Okay, they teach 3 hours a week.
It's a great gig, yeah.
Okay, it's a great gig. Now, they get maybe $200,000 a year to teach 3 hours a week.
They get that much now?
Oh, easily.
At Harvard? Oh, you're talking Harvard Law.
So, easily. So if they only teach 16 times 3, 48 hours a semester, it's 100 hours a year for $200,000. How much is that per hour?
I can't even do the math. It's a lot.
It's 100 hours a year that they teach, and they get $200,000. They get $2,000 an hour.
Boy.
I can't pay that much.
No, you can't.
I can't pay that much. I propose to pay $20 an hour.
20. Okay, for a person of equal stature?
Well, I'm not going to teach law.
You're not going to teach law. What would you be teaching?
Here's what I propose to the town. I said it'll be a general college, a liberal arts college.
Okay.
And because I'm more acquainted with a liberal arts college, I'm not going to go into specialties necessarily, but upon reflection, I said what I'd like to do is to have a curriculum that would be available for those that wanted it, that would teach manufacturing. I said we can build up manufacturing in this area if we teach people the basics of manufacturing, and let's try to bring back manufacturing by educating people on what it is and where we have the ability to bring back
you have a practical focus?
Well, manufacturing is
very practical.
Well, of course it's practical. And having an education is practical too, because on internet, just understanding the things to do and trying to compete in the world, you need an education.
I had a program I did the other day with a grand fellow. He's up in his years now. George Stoney, he's on the board here, helped start public access, teacher at NYU, and he confessed to me toward the end of the program, he said the students come in and they say, and that's at a NYU, so that's you get accredited. And that's the certificate that you want to, but they come in and they say, what do I have to do to be a B? What do I have to do to be a C? That kind of attitude is there, and he says it's very dismaying and everything. But the reason they're there is you want to get a certificate that is accredited, because then that's going to put you into a place where you can make money. It's all outer direction.
Supposing I say that you're wrong.
Okay.
Would you be interested in learning why you're wrong?
Absolutely.
Okay, here's the reason. You're in effect attacking me without understanding that you are.
Okay.
You're saying, in effect, that who the hell would ever go to an equivalency college, because when you go out to get a job and you tell the employer, well, I'm the equivalent of a college grad, and then a Harvard grad is right there, who would the guy rather take?
Harvard.
A Harvard grad or an equivalency grad? Let's explore that for a minute.
Okay.
You're an employer in that town, and you help your workers, your managers taught some of the students. You know the quality of the instruction. These are local people.
People who know what they're talking about.
People who know, you know that the quality of instruction is good because you're part of that local equivalency college program. The student that comes out of this program that I'm talking about, If you've gone to Harvard or NYU,
Yeah.
how much money do you owe when you get out?
Oh, I don't know.
100,000, 100,000
yeah.
or more.
Yeah, they got a huge
How
debt
much
they're
do you
carrying.
think that my student is going to owe if he had no cost of tuition and no cost of books?
Well, that would be very small.
He's not going to have a student loan because
Right.
we don't have any student loans.
It used to be when you came out of college, you didn't have a big student loan. I don't know what's happened to where that's all built up now, but it's really weighing down a lot of people.
Go back now to the employer in that town that is thinking of hiring a guy from Harvard who has 100,000, 150,000 in debt, or the local guy that lives there, that went to school there, that owes no money.
Yeah.
And we're going to
No
offer,
structural
and we're going to
adjustment
offer
needed.
that person. The prevailing rate in that town, by the way, was $9. It was on the door of a convenience store. If
Yeah.
you work in the evening, they give you 10.
Uh-huh.
So in outside areas, your prevailing wage is really a lot less. You could never pay off a student loan at a prevailing wage of $10 an hour.
They put the interest on too.
So if you hire the person from Harvard and he has to pay $800 a month on student loans, how much money is he going to demand from you to work for you? And if he doesn't get that and you can't pay it, how many part-time jobs is he going to take that will take him away from the work that he does for you and make him a dissatisfied employee?
You got a
don't
point.
need that.
Yeah.
You don't want that. So who the hell would ever hire a person from Harvard or NYU or any high-cost college if you had a decent, no-cost college locally?
Yeah, well, okay, that's good. Well, it's a process of accreditation. In a certain sense, the whole system of grading or the whole system of judging the person that the system has right through from kindergarten. They're giving you marks on whether you pass crayons
if the
or whatever.
community-
And they're somebody saying this person's okay rather than the person being able to assert themselves on their own.
How much pressure would there be in a community to have a decent education if that would help benefit the community to have good people graduate?
Well, good people, definition of good people, remember a lot of good people define good people are people who do what the hell they're told. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all they want.
Okay.
Just teach them how to do what they're told. You have an authority figure. You teach them to do that, and then they'll do whatever we tell them. And the idea that the person can be inner-directed or self-motivated or doing it. Napoleon Hill, did you ever hear Napoleon?
Yes, of course.
Napoleon Hill said there's about 2% of the world population is self-starting.
Right.
Everybody else are affiliators.
Right.
So people are affiliators. They're not self-starting. They wouldn't know what the hell to do if they were thrown on their own. And the lords who have all the ownership and the control of the society assume that's human nature.
Okay,
So you're saying that people can be self-motivated to do things in their own interest, but I'm just wondering about the premise. At least it isn't accepted by our sociological economic structures.
If the student in the area is able to go to college for free, and it's an equivalency college, and the cost savings are that there's no accreditation. Do you know that in order to have a law school, just to
That'd
give
be
you,
like going to a class where you don't get any grade.
well, no,
in
we would
the
give
minds
grades.
of people.
We would give grades.
Well, okay, I'm just thinking
why
of it
not?
sociologically.
Well, we could give grades. We could give tests. We certainly would.
Okay.
We would try to motivate people to pass and have good grades. The mere fact that we're not accredited means that we can't. We don't have a license by the state to grant a degree.
Okay, another
so
problem.
no degree. It's an equivalency.
I just had a fellow.
There's no accreditation.
Okay,
There's no licensing.
Okay, I just had a fellow in here the other
No
day,
student
an
loans.
old friend of mine. I understand, and that's one part of a thing. I had a fellow in here the other day. We did a program. It's going to air within this frame, and he's from Pakistan, Urdu. He knows Urdu, and he's a lawyer. He went to school there and everything. And he goes and he's coming, and you go into the courts. And the courts, you got people who are here. You got 189 countries in New York City out of the 192 at the UN, sizable communities. They don't speak English. They can't speak English. A real problem. So the translation, and they don't have any standards by which the translation is set. Somebody says, I speak the language, 189, language, and the translation, the people just do it to get the job. They don't really know the language, so the translation is very inadequate to represent what the person's actually saying. And so now next door to where I live now, they set up a school where they're going to teach that and then put a certificate down that says this person is legitimately able to translate between Bengali and English or whatever it is. And so they want those standards. The people that are looking for patterns want those standards, the certification that those people really are capable of doing what it is. Yeah, and that's another example of that? Of the need to have some
except for
certification,
one thing.
and also the social skills you get by hanging out at the Harvard lunchrooms.
Colleges don't certify that a person that goes through is really able to use the information they supposedly got.
Well,
the training and
that's what the grading system is supposed to do.
Well,
you
really,
learned about Athens, or you learned about something, and you got a grade from the professor who knows, and that's a way of certifying that you are capable rather than just a tabula rasa.
We have found basically, I think, in America and probably the rest of the world, that a liberal arts education doesn't train you for anything. It really gives you the right to go for a higher education. Now, when you go for a higher education, I've warned people in a book that I wrote that there are no jobs once you get that higher degree except to teach other people who too would wind up having no jobs except to teach other people.
You got that book? It's out? Is it still in print? That's good.
I call it self-employment.
Okay,
and it's free on internet. You can look for self-employment, my name, and you can download it for free.
Yeah, these possibilities of things you're thinking are coming out of the cyber things that are going on now, which give all kinds of possibilities for people learning what they want.
You missed on one question.
I missed on a lot.
No, you didn't. On one basic question. How is it you can give a free education when you know that you have to pay teachers, pay rent, and pay for books? How is it free?
You mean when you're in the normal pattern?
When I'm setting up a free school, who's going to provide the money to pay for the teachers? If the students
who are the teachers going to be?
Well, the teachers will be
from
local.
The actual society.
They'll be local people. They can people that have degrees and have things to teach, and
there are those people around.
Well, there's plenty of people around.
Are there really?
Oh, of course there are. But if not, we'll have to pay more to get people outside of the area to come in. But the question is, where does the money come from to pay the teachers if the students are not paying tuition?
Okay, I don't know. Where would it come from?
Isn't that a question?
That is an interesting question because they would want to have something.
Okay, here is it.
Need to have, I guess.
We're going to pay, it'll be competitive wages for the teachers. It'll be competitive where they will we'll have competition for the jobs.
Oh, okay.
We'll have to pay prevailing wages.
Prevailing?
Yeah, prevailing.
Well, wait a minute. Prevailing at NYU is something else.
That isn't prevailing. That's a system of accreditation and tenure, and you can't fire anyone, and that's a different story.
Yeah.
Non-profit, and there's a lot of money that people have to spend or something.
Well,
but
to get that certificate,
it's $70 per hour to teach a student. At NYU. I'm making up that figure now, so don't hold me to it, but it's probably at least, if you're charging $40,000 a year tuition, and you have 15 times 15, 225, 450, no more than 500 hours a year to be taught, and you're teaching, say, 50,000, you're paying 50,000 and you only have 500 hours. It's $100 per hour every time you sit in the seat. So cut it down to 70 because I made some assumptions here that are on the high side. It's got to be $70 an hour, roughly.
Okay.
My school is only $2 an hour. I know how to run a school on $2 an hour. $3 is like a luxury. I can make a huge profit at $3 an hour. So I don't need $70 an hour. If I needed $70 an hour, I could not provide a free education. I can provide one at $2 an hour or $3.
There's a big difference between 70 and 3.
So how do I get the 3 is the question, not how do I get the 70.
Okay, how do you get
Here's how you do it.
Okay.
And to start off with, I wrote in that book, Self-Employment, how my idea for a $2 or $3 per hour college, equivalency college. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. And I explained it the other day to a friend of mine from the school business, and collectively, 3 of us in the room had 100 years of experience in the school business. We are.
That's right. You ran a school, legal aid school.
Right. So we have 100 hours collectively. 100 years of experience among the 3 of us.
That's a lot of experience.
That's a lot of time that we put in, and they are still in the business. I'm not, but they're in. So we were talking about this, and I said I have an idea for a $2 or $3 per hour school, and one of them said, "Hey, that's great. That sounds like a fantastic idea," and I beamed at that. The other one said, "That's ridiculous. You don't need to charge anything." I said, "What?
What?
What? What do you mean? How come?
How did they spell it out?
Well, he did, and I said, my God, he's right.
And what was it he was right about?
Here's what he was
right about. Here it is.
Everybody
write this down now. Yeah.
This is how it works. You go into a small town, and you get the government of the town to cooperate in identifying who the wealthiest people are in the town. And for people that are over 73 years of age or older, who are in good health, who are rich and are not overinsured, those are the 4 requirements. 73, rich, in good health, and not overinsured.
Not overinsured. What does that mean?
That if they have $10 million in assets, they're not allowed to have $10 million in insurance, because people would be afraid that they will kill themselves, because if the insurance becomes more than their net worth, then they're afraid that they will commit suicide in order to get the policy and give it to their family.
Really?
But well, some people, one out of 100, but it's a risk.
Yeah, well,
1 out of 100, just 1 out of 100,
maybe,
but that's a risk.
All right.
So
well,
if a person
risk is one of the things to be dealt with.
If a person is underinsured, then he's insurable. If a person is overinsured, then people won't touch him for fear that there may be somebody that would bump him off or something. But you have to have little insurance, rich, be in good health, and over 73 or older. If that occurs, you can sell a $1 million life insurance policy to the individual that someone else will pay for.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's worth money. It's worth 3% of the $1 million on the day he signs the policy.
Huh. Okay.
The minute, because he's giving insurable interest, he's donating his insurability, and there's a certain risk there. People worry, that imagine if Harvard received a policy on my life, I might be worried that Harvard might go out and send people to accelerate, do me in. That's a fear that
become
people
part
have.
of the endowment.
A fear, a natural fear.
Yeah, but
so
well, you're covering all the bases. But go ahead. Yeah.
So the minute the policy is signed, you can get $30,000 up front immediately from people in that market that know those policies.
Really?
Yeah, 3%.
This is
if you wait a 2-year period, have you heard of the 2-year contestability period?
Never.
It's a period of time in which if a person commits suicide during that 2-year period, the policy won't be paid. So once you survive the 2-year contestability period, then the policy becomes worth 10%, $100,000 immediately that somebody would buy that policy.
Really?
On a 75-year-old person.
Now, who in the heck would know
well,
this?
There's a market.
Know it. Yeah,
I didn't know it until 2
that
or
guy
3 weeks ago.
That's the guy who brought it up.
I didn't know it.
Oh.
I'm just learning it. I'm just explicating what I've learned. But there's 3 things. It's like a triage. If you're in this non-cost school business, you would have local people agree to have their lives be insured. You could take 1/3 of the policies and get the money immediately at 10%. That's $30,000 per 1,000, 1 million of insurance. 30,000 cash right then and there. If, on the other hand, you want and take another 1/3 of the policies, maybe you get 12 policies in all, 4, 4, and 4. So 30 times 4 is 120,000. 2 years later, you get 100,000 from 4. That's $400,000 2 years later. And the other 1/3, you wait until the person dies, you get $1 million each policy.
Is anybody doing this?
Nobody has ever done it. Now, Business Week in October 19, the year 2007, Business Week reported on all free colleges in the country, and I read that very carefully.
Okay.
No tuition college. One, you had to get up at 4 o'clock and milk cows and then go to the agricultural school and get a degree. So you had a work-study program.
Yeah, right.
Then there were 2 free engineering schools. One of them we know, Cooper Union. The other is a munitions maker. I forget the name. Begins with an O. It's a well-known name. But there's 2 free engineering schools where tuition is paid for at those 2. And then there are 5 military academies where, of course, you know that. But that's it. That's it. No one's doing this.
Right.
I was very interested. I wanted to see if anyone had done it.
And you interconnect these things. Like you were talking to the people upstate and everything. You interconnect these things.
I put the pieces together.
Yeah.
Imagine if you have a town where everyone is getting more money through my other idea, a website where people put on their tasks and let people find them and hire them to perform a task.
And there would be synergies between these things.
Course,
they fit together in your own pattern. It could be presented. Another one is, because we only got a few minutes left and everything, is your idea about
Attorney General. That's the fourth one.
Spell it out. So we only got about 10 minutes left.
In America, we have increasingly, unfortunately, an excessive amount of enforcement of duties of people. More and more we find that government is enforcing with cars and scooters and policemen and bicycles and guns and forfeitures and prison, and it's just more and more and more.
Prison industry.
Everything. It's a prison industry. The deal is that we allow them to commit the crimes in New York, we justice them here, and we send them upstate for 20 years to live. And the people upstate depend upon that for their income.
It's a whole business,
it's
a whole life. They
this is
Wonder
crazy.
Bread on their table.
So the Attorney General concept is something that we have to bring down to the lowest level of government. And we have to start enforcing the rights of people.
Rather than the duties.
Rather than their duties. We have to enforce our rights to health care, to a job, to no voter fraud, to whatever the things that we as human beings are looking forward to.
Rather than all the attention
all that other stuff.
The law enforcement, that should be the law,
we have to have a country free of monopolies. We have to enforce the antitrust laws. We have to enforce law in favor of the people.
In favor of the people.
Right. But we're not doing that.
We're not. It seems that way. It's going away from that. Did we ever have that?
Yes, we did. In 1982 or so, the FTC was religious with its Federal Trade Commission. Washington was most fantastic in enforcing the Robinson-Patman Act, a federal antitrust law that prohibits price discrimination.
SEC?
When they stopped doing it, when Nixon came in, FTC. Federal
I know,
Trade
but
Commission.
I was thinking also securities exchange.
That's a different thing. All these agencies are pretty much no longer helping the people. They allow big to get bigger.
And that's right.
And that's
a trend we can see.
So we need to have an enforcement official go in. At the town level, the Attorney General, the town Attorney General, would go in and sue people that are hurting the town, hurting the employees, hurting the homeowners, hurting the residents, the people.
Represent the interests of the people.
And the money that they collect,
empowered
the money that they collect, they can use to buy free health care for every single resident of the town.
The money that they collect against the people who are treating the people bad. Those who are treating the people in general badly.
Those who have stolen from the town are going to give it back, and now we have money to buy health care.
Instead of underpinning those rights of the people to steal from everybody, you want to underpin the rights of the people not to be stolen from.
Right. We have to have a reaction to this.
I think that's something that could go politically in the air now, don't you, with the talk about change?
Well, we are trying it on the ballot initiative. I'm trying to become New York City Attorney General with a ballot initiative that would appoint me as New York City Attorney General, and I can raise $5 billion a year for New York City and stop the budget crisis. And you can do that in Albany. Well, of course there is. They're $5 billion short or some huge amount. I could, as Attorney General for New York City, I could create up to $5 billion a year in legitimate income by pursuing claims that the leadership either is unaware of or doesn't want to pursue. But if you allowed the Attorney General to go out there and instead of representing New York City in slip and fall cases, which is an important thing to do, that's just defending New York City. How about going out and grabbing the money that's owed to New York City?
Okay,
So that would be the Attorney General's job.
How many billion did you say?
I could raise, Spitzer sued in New York State $3 billion a year.
He did while he was Attorney General.
But he did it with his hands tied behind his back because he only sued a few friends of his financial friends. He didn't really sue legitimately across the board.
You've always thought that the Attorney General is more powerful than the governor.
And Spitzer found out that was true.
And that this principle of the Attorney General, are there things out of medieval times or historical development
in England
where there are people that really support the people's interests in the name of the system rather than just the vested interest?
Well, the ombudsman was an effort Scandinavian, but there in New York we adopted an ombudsman. We give him a roll of quarters, or she.
Is that like Mark Green was?
We give the ombudsman a roll of quarters and say that if any resident has a complaint against a government agency, here's a quarter, call up and see if you can resolve it, but don't go into court.
What about the third estate? I mean, the fourth estate, the press and so forth can call this to attention and do something, but you want to put it embedded in the system, right?
We should elect an Attorney General. Spitzer, because he was elected, we need to have him elected. Spitzer, as elected Attorney General, had the freedom to do anything. He never had to ask anyone for anything.
Didn't have to answer to the governor?
That's correct.
He's independent.
That is correct.
Is that
if you're elected?
Is that the case across the country
no,
or not?
37 states are elected, the others are not.
37's a lot out of 60 or 50. Yeah,
Attorney General in California is powerful too.
That's important
so
too.
Spitzer didn't owe anyone anything. He could tell the governor to go to hell when he was Attorney General. Because he was so effective as Attorney General, they elevated him away from his power and made him governor where he had no power. He didn't realize
that
it.
Was that was like Murphy's Law. No, what is the law where you get promoted to the level of your incompetence?
Murphy's
not
principle.
Murphy's.
It's Peter principle.
Peter principle. That's the one here. They got all these principles. Anything on the federal level comparable to that, or is it applicable?
Well,
to
no. The
level?
Attorney General is really subject to President Cheney's direction.
Yeah, President Cheney. Yeah.
So
and these things all interrelate in your mind. You put all these things together, and you got 100 websites that help explicate all these ideas.
Lawmall.com
are there links to all your 100 websites?
Yes, they are. Lawmall.com is the main
Well,
website.
then that's a generic thing we want to make sure we get in here. Law, LAWMALL.com.
And on the side, there's a links, and the second link down is my most important when it gives all the top political things that I'm doing.
The top political, including this Attorney General thing.
Absolutely.
And you got 100. There are 100 links on the site.
I've got more links. I've got more websites than you can imagine, but they're all brought together by law.
And do they all come together in a pattern for you in your mind? You link them all together
and
see.
I only do things that are workable. I try to do things that are workable rather than trying to argue that we ought to change things by having a constitutional amendment. I only try to work on what can be done.
What can be done, and these are all initiatives. They use the thing about the Attorney General in New York. It would be an initiative that people. In fact, they're out there now getting initiatives to open 9/11. Right? They want to investigate that again, and that corresponds to the thinking of a huge percentage of the people that should be opening. It could be made an initiative. City council could put before us and so forth.
With a subpoena
it's a thing that could be actually done.
We need the subpoena power, and guess who we need to enforce the subpoena? The city attorney general. That's a natural. Why do you want to hire some guy out in Mineola to some individual practitioner to go in and represent the government here? You want an attorney general doing it.
Well, so you have to have a person of a different disposition than someone that's going along with that system that's in place that's imposing the obligations and penalties. The obligations of the citizens. There's a system built like that, and they got that. And you'd have people of a different disposition about the system and the things in place, and the citizenry that would be more oriented toward the citizenry.
Here's two important
because those
things.
people are in a system that, in a certain sense, is corrupted by the assumptions that they're there to enforce the duties of those people, like bailiffs on a feudal estate or something.
The most important petition that we could ever have signed is to create the obligation for New York City to pay 100% of the campaign financing costs for anyone running for office.
That's another one.
That is the biggest one that we can have.
You think that's the one
we need that. That is what's causing our problem. Because
what is causing the problem?
That when people are elected with the money from the wealthy call up and they want favors. And they always get the favors because the politicians won't get the money next time.
Right.
So that if we have campaign financing, and even if it cost 5% of the economy would be strong for the other 95%.
You're talking about we should have campaign financing out of the public,
taxpayer money.
Out of the public
Absolutely.
coffers. State, local, and federal elections should be done that way with no
and they
no
won't
PACs,
do it. They won't do it because the people that are there in office are there and they get reelected all the time. They have built themselves.
The incumbents.
That's right.
98%.
So the only way of breaking that now is to have people be given money by the government, and I'm trying to do that with a petition. If we do that in New York State, we have all these towns and villages. We could do that in New York State because every city and town has the right to pass their own little statute.
And then that might open the way for third parties and things of that sort of thing. A greater diversity of voices and everything like that. And these are all interrelated.
And an e-list, we can communicate with people by email that's essentially free if it's done the right way. We communicate with people in the same way that we're doing it now. And there's a third way of communicating with people, and that is to put petitioners out on the street and have them raising money at the same time they petition, so that it will pay for them to be on the street. You could field 1,000 people to go out there, and we could change the law that way.
These are all things that can be done.
Absolutely.
Then you had a program with Paula the other day about Howard Stern and about the FCC, or the Federal Communication. Martin's still there, I guess, and everything, and that they've got a gun to the head of certain people, and it maybe had an effect. And so all these things sort of interrelate in your mind. And
because
so
I work on what's doable.
You work on such. You never thought about running for political office?
I ran for Attorney General 2 years ago. I couldn't get on the ballot. They wouldn't let me. I could not. I went to the Second Circuit, and I argued that to prevent me from paying on a per signature basis means that I have to pay twice as much to get signatures. I have to pay by the hour, and people that get paid by the hour don't have as much incentive to deliver as when
you were running for state attorney general.
Attorney General,
And the system is so rigged that it wasn't possible.
Well, they set it up. The Republicans and Democrats both have set it up where they don't care who wins that much. They just want among themselves. They divide it up, and
they're watching that chicken coop.
And there's very little difference.
And they have a chicken in every pot.
There's very little difference now. I mean, a few things, and maybe somebody's for abortion or against it, but other than that, really, forget it. We have a total stalemate that they want, and they pretend that it's the other person's fault. Take the ballot initiative now. The ballot initiative...
That's to open up 9/11.
Well,
no?
Generally.
Okay.
A ballot initiative is where if the voter votes in that statute, then they get what they voted for. But when you vote for a candidate and the promises, you never get any of the promises that they make.
No.
So why should we be voting for candidates? Let's start voting to change the law, and you will get what you want. We can actually change the law directly.
Wouldn't you, with your agenda, as it were, you would be a very, very interesting candidate for an office like Attorney General or something.
I'm trying. I'm volunteering to become Attorney General in any town or village that wants me.
That could be a base of operation?
Well, I want to show that it works.
Yeah, right.
And I want the position ultimately to be elective and someone else hold it. I made a proposal the other day that I would do the work on a contingency. I said I don't recommend it. I think that you ought to hire somebody and pay them a legitimate salary and let them do their job. But in order for you to understand that this is not a rip-off, that I'm willing to do the work on a contingency so that you don't lay out any money.
And
but I don't like that. I would rather have you hire someone and let me tell them what to do, but hire somebody legitimately and have them be elected. That's what we need here.
Well, that would be really good, because that would have an effect to where you could really have some change that can actually be realized, and things people can actually do that would help to change things functional or structurally. And that's what something that's needed, and it's needed very much. And I just tell you, you're the most incredible person I've ever run into. You run off an amicus brief in a weekend like I would write a letter to mother, as I used to say, and you're doing it, and you're all self-motivated, and I congratulate you enormously. Beautiful family. Your wife is wonderful.
I'm filing a suit tomorrow.
You're filing a suit?
I've been working all night on it.
They call them file a suit in person.
It's an arbitration. I'm filing an arbitration against Gordon Ramsay. We had
that thing in London.
Yeah, we had 3,000. We had 3,000 newspapers carry the story. The headline story in Beiping, China. The headline story was that Gordon Ramsay gets sued.
No kidding.
English newspaper.
Really?
Yeah, in China.
Amongst all that stuff, they could have been talking about the Olympics. They're talking about your case. Wow, that's really interesting.
Well, this was a year ago.
That was a year ago, but you're bringing it up again?
Well, we were thrown out of court because of an arbitration provision, so I'm now going into arbitration starting tomorrow.
You heard it here from the horse's mouth, that being Carl Pearson, one of the greatest people that we've ever had a chance to, one of the hardest working people we've ever run into, and it's really good. Law Mall. Go to his site.